What's up everyone, Mark here today to host the ultimate throwdown between the ASUS C302 and the Samsung Chromebook Plus. I'm only missing a steel cage. Let's do this! Before I dive in, hey guys, sorry to interrupt this guy. But I thought it was really important to tell you right now that I'm giving away a $100 Google Play gift card at the end of this episode. So you have to watch the whole episode to find out how to win. All right, and back to other me. I want to remind you that Promevo is a premier Google partner focusing solely on our customers' Google lives. We here at Promevo want to engage with as many people as possible to share all of our offerings from G Suite to Chrome devices to software solutions like our very own G Panel and G Scholar to help build and maintain your Google life needs. Okay, it's time for the face-off, and let me be clear. I'm comparing the Samsung Chromebook Plus to the ASUS C302, not the Samsung Chromebook Pro. We will cover the Pro in a future video, however, but let's start off with the easy part of this comparison. Price. Simply put, the Samsung Chromebook Plus is out for $449, and the ASUS C302 is $499. That's pretty simple. You can use that extra $50 to pre-order your copy of Mass Effect Andromeda so that we can play co-op together online. Now, of course, we all know that cost is not everything, so let's take a look beyond something as simple as price. But I'm going to approach this from a practical standpoint and less from a technical spec sheet angle. Let's talk about the screens. Hands down, it seems that the Samsung wins over in brightness and contrast. The colors appear noticeably more vibrant and brighter than compared to the ASUS. That said, the ASUS still has a great screen, but I truly believe that Samsung went out of their way to try and wow us with the display on this. On paper, the Samsung also provides a higher than HD resolution of 2400 by 1600 compared to ASUS's 1920 by 1080 Full HD display. They both perform very well in direct light here, as we've placed our bright studio lights right in front of the displays to show you. It's important to consider the form factor of the screen. The 3:2 ratio on the Samsung makes for a more square presentation, and it ultimately forces some other changes on the device, most notably with regards to the keyboard and its smaller keys, while ASUS uses the standard 16:9 widescreen that we're familiar with. Check out some of these comparison shots of the devices pulling up YouTube side by side, for example. This should give you a pretty good idea of how the devices handle website layout in both portrait and landscape mode. You can see some extra information on the Samsung at the bottom, but when we switch to portrait mode, the ASUS reveals more information. Pretty interesting, right? Think if you were working on a Google Sheet, for example. If you needed to view more columns simultaneously, I'd probably recommend the ASUS. If you want to see more rows simultaneously, I'd say go with the Samsung. That said, if you flip the devices, you'll find the opposite is true in that case. So just kind of, keep that in mind when deciding on a device. Let's talk weight and convenience. We need everything lightweight to make life easy, right? Obviously, these two devices want you to use them in lieu of your tablet. So let's compare the size. We can see that there's a slight size difference between the two, the Samsung just barely being thinner at 0.51 inches compared to ASUS's 0.54 inches. Samsung also takes the edge here on weight by almost 1/3 of a pound, weighing in at 2.38 pounds compared to ASUS's 2.65. That said, most tablets seem to be averaging a weight of about 1 pound. So, will it replace a tablet? Yeah, I think it should. I think it's silly to be so weight-focused at the expense of productivity. I understand that 1 pound can make up a large portion of your bag, which might weigh a total of about 10 to 15 pounds. But when you think of the versatility and productivity capability of a Chromebook, I think that makes it hard to argue against a convertible device like this, even if it weighs a little bit more. So yeah, your mileage may vary, but I'm sticking to my guns. The weight is not a problem for me. I do feel like the devices don't really feel that much different weight-wise in your hand, which is kind of nice, and I truly attribute that to the design of the devices. Speaking of which, I don't want to entirely gloss over this, but I also don't think that this is a section that we need to really have as an entire section to speak at length about. But both of these are really classy looking machines. The Samsung has smooth curved edges, playing to that creative artist type that I believe the device is being marketed towards in the consumer end. And the ASUS has similar smoothness, but utilizes sharper edges, giving it a more professional look, in my opinion. Either way, I doubt anyone is necessarily picking up these devices based solely on what they look like. And hey, they even look kind of similar too, so pretty even-keeled there. Let's talk battery life. We all know how advertised battery life is, so of course that means I had to run some tests. I left them running with video loops, and the ASUS was way closer to its advertised 10-hour battery life. I ultimately got just under 9 hours on the ASUS, as you'll remember me talking about in my full review. The Samsung did not fare as well, hitting right around 8 hours and 15 minutes for me, which is almost 2 hours shorter than advertised. Now, that's pretty common in my experience when it comes to practical use of the device. With normal usage, I found the ASUS actually really to stand out even more here. While the Samsung performed better than in my loop test that I put it through, the ASUS has given me almost comical amounts of battery life at this point. I'm honestly not sure if it's going to die ever at this rate. I have to assume that some of this battery discrepancy between the two devices comes from the overall higher brightness in the Samsung. Either way, the battery life is probably the biggest highlight of the ASUS to me at this point. Okay, let's talk about the input devices. The trackpads are very similar on both devices, and they both function very well. Now, I had gotten some comments and heard some rumors about a trackpad issue on the ASUS early on, close to launch, but I also heard that this was remedied quickly by a software update. Now, I can't confirm any of that happening, but I can confirm that my experience was perfectly fine on both devices, so I would assume that if there was an issue, it definitely was remedied at this point. Both trackpads offer solid palm rejection when typing, and I had no issues there on either device. I would say that both touchscreens performed evenly as well, both very responsive and handled my clumsy fingers pretty easily. ASUS easily wins the keyboard department for me. It feels thick, for lack of a better term. And what I mean there is that it has a really good tactile response to you pressing the key, it feels springy, and it feels fairly close to a desktop keyboard. Unfortunately, the Samsung does not quite nail that. I mentioned in my review that it was the one area that did not feel as premium as the rest of the device, and that's definitely the case here. See, I don't find the smaller backspace and tab keys to really be a huge problem, as I've acclimated to the size of the keyboard quickly. But it just feels thin and somewhat cheap, which is really disappointing when you consider the quality of literally everything else on the device. That said, it seems that Samsung was still concerned with our input as they included the not an S Pen digitizer pen for the Chromebook. It functions like a regular stylus, but Samsung also built in some really cool proprietary features allowing you to do things like performing screen captures, creating a new note and then writing directly on the screen to capture said note, act as a magnifying glass, and there's just one that I really don't understand, which is the laser pointer mode. Okay, let me rephrase that. I totally understand the point of the laser pointer mode, but since you have to place the stylus directly on the screen, it absolutely drastically reduces the effectiveness of an actual laser pointer, which, if you're not familiar with laser pointers, are devices designed specifically so you can point at things like your screen from a distance. Now, I did try the computer out with a regular stylus and it operated well enough, but the precision offered by Samsung's pen is really unparalleled. It's got a really fine point, making it very easy to select things on screen. In Samsung's native art and note apps, I should mention that I did notice a little bit of lag, but oddly, I haven't really seen that lag anywhere else yet, or at least not anywhere near as noticeably as I did in the internal apps. So, which one is faster? Well, without question, the ASUS is the more powerful device on paper. And when it comes to Octane score results, it received nearly double the Octane score of the Samsung. But the one thing a lot of people asked me was, how do these fare in actual normal usage? Do Octane scores really reflect the actual performance of the device? Well, I'll refer you back to my review videos here where I speak on that at length. And even after using both devices another couple of weeks after watching the videos, I really don't feel the Octane scores to be anywhere near as telling as everyone will have you believe. The ASUS is still more powerful. I do notice that it appears to pull websites faster more often than not by a fraction of a second. And, you know, of course, a huge portion of that can really be attributed to your internet connection speeds. But even using the same Wi-Fi in our building solely for these two devices, I found that the ASUS typically outsped the Samsung in the end, at least by a hair on a regular basis. That said, the Samsung seems to be prepared to run Android applications way more effectively. Now, if you go back to my videos, you'll see that I reviewed both on the Samsung and, more importantly in this case, on the ASUS, talking about their Google Play functionality. Now, as of making this comparison video, the ASUS has had its access to the Google Play Store removed from both stable and beta channels. Now, the information regarding this seems to be somewhat conflicting, but as of this time, it appears that Google is aware of the issue with the software, that they knowingly pulled access, and they're currently working on a fix. But in my review, again, it ran all of the apps I tested on it just fine. I threw a bunch of stuff you guys asked me. Everybody is really hot on that new Star Wars game as being a resource hog, so I got a lot of fun time from me. Now, of course, I had read some online horror stories about users' experience on the ASUS with Android apps versus the Samsung, and really thought nothing of it at first, until access to the Play Store was removed entirely. This gives a clear edge to the Samsung, as the Play Store access is a huge part of the tablet functionality in the convertible Chromebook game. Now, of course, if they end up fixing everything and re-releasing this back on the ASUS, I would move my standing back to saying that these are on pretty even playing fields for me, as again, everything that I tested on both devices ran without issue. You know when I noticed that the ASUS is more powerful? After long usage periods of multitasking. Over time, the Samsung will, have that occasional lag thing where you click, switch tabs rather, and it takes that extra hair of a second, which we're so instant gratification focused that we can't handle 2 split seconds. But that being said, I have to say that the ASUS did not have that experience for me. Now, of course, it's not a huge complaint of the Samsung end, but it's something I should address, that over time I did notice this a little bit. I have not experienced this whatsoever in any of my time with the ASUS yet. I think that's where the new processor in the ASUS shines most brightly. I can see this device excelling in the business world for that very reason. Okay, I know I said this was a comparison video, and obviously I've done some comparing, but really you all just wanted me to tell you which one is king, who wears the crown today, who wins, and the answer is simple. The customer wins. And I know that's a terrible dad joke, and you're welcome to roast me for that, but that doesn't mean it's not true. We now have 2 convertible Chromebook devices that people are really excited about. And I don't just mean Chrome aficionados, I mean the general public is excited about this. And because of that, there's an energy in the Chrome world that I have not felt in a really long time. So that's really cool to me. It's exciting to be a part of that. Truly, I think the user is going to decide which one is better for them. I think that these are both very well-made devices with a lot of thought that went into them. I think that the ASUS is ultimately the more powerful device. I think people will be very happy with it on a long-term basis. The battery life is killer, and it's an absolute workhorse. However, even knowing that, I personally prefer the Samsung. I know, I'm totally excited to see if any of you are going to roast me well in the comments. It doesn't matter, though. That's the one that works better for me, and I think that's important for you to glean from this information. Right now, to me, the ASUS just feels like a really awesome Chromebook. And that's great. It is an awesome Chromebook. But now that I know that manufacturers are out there trying to create devices that really feel designed to be a step forward for the Chrome OS and really speak to me as a creative type, I will happily spend my money to let manufacturers know that, hey, while maybe I think you could have worked a little harder on the keyboard or maybe given a little more processing oomph for the masses, I want you to know that I am all for what you're doing to this OS, and I really feel strongly about where you're taking the platform. The Chromebook Plus hits all of the right creative notes for me personally. The stylus is great, it makes it easy for me to take live notes, if I want to write music or draw or anything like that. I guess what I'm ultimately saying is I think the Samsung made the riskier device of the two, and while the ASUS may be more ultimately powerful, I have a feeling that what Samsung tried here is to take the next step for the Chrome platform by taking some of those risks. Things like the 3x2 design, the proprietary stylus, and a marketing campaign directed right towards creative youth. If nothing else, this makes me excited to see how this affects the creativity of other companies making devices now. For the first time in the last few years, I'm actually thinking to myself, what is this platform going to turn into now? Where is it going to go from here? What's the next evolutionary leap for the Chromebook? I'm so curious. I honestly wish that the mobile phone manufacturers would take similar risks in their device creation. So there you have it. Both of these are excellent devices. I personally find that the Samsung just edges the ASUS out ever so slightly for me. But hey, maybe you'll like the ASUS more. I would guess that we can more than likely still be friends. Maybe. As always, jokes aside, thanks for watching. Leave your comments here to let us know what you liked about this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I know you want to find out how to get that $100 gift card. So here's the deal. The contest is going to run through this Friday, March 17th, 2017. And I will be picking a winner based on people who have liked, subscribed to our videos, and left a comment. So I'll be picking one of you at random. And don't just leave a comment like, comment, or this is a video. Of course it's a video. I know it's a video. We made it. But leave something that's a little more genuine. Just try to engage with me because this content is for you guys and I want to engage with all of you. And, you know, giving away these gift cards and things of that nature, this is our way of just saying thanks for all of the support. So on that, thanks as always. Remember, like, subscribe, share, comment, all those things we love. And the contest ends on March 17th, 2017. I will be reaching out to you by responding to your comment. So make sure you pay attention on Friday to your YouTube comments and notifications. All right, we'll see you next time.